the Messerschmitt Bf 109, a sleek machine that once ruled the skies. For Germany's Luftwaffe, it was the weapon of choice, the spearhead of their air war. But behind its fame lies a darker truth. More of its pilots died in accidents, exhaustion, and despair than in glorious combat. From treacherous landings and inhuman fatigue to fuel shortages and overwhelming Allied firepower, this legendary fighter claimed the lives of the very men sworn to master it. This is the untold story of how the Bf 109 killed its own. The Bf 109 was revolutionary when it appeared in 1937. It was fast, sleek, and deadly in a dogfight. But its brilliance came at a price. The aircraft's undercarriage was dangerously narrow, angled inward to fit beneath its thin wings. On the runway, the fighter was unstable, swaying side to side like a tightrope walker. A gust of wind, a nervous correction, or a patch of uneven ground could send the plane tumbling. Add to that poor forward visibility from the cockpit, and every takeoff and landing was a gamble. Pilots dreaded crosswinds and muddy fields, where accidents multiplied. In fact, more than 1 in 10 Bf 109s built before 1942 were lost in non-combat crashes. For many young aviators, their first flight ended in fire, not from enemy guns, but from the earth itself. The Luftwaffe earned a reputation for daring aces, but behind the legends were hundreds of forgotten men, killed before they ever reached battle. The machine's deadliest flaw wasn't its guns or engines, it was its landing gear. In the summer of 1940, the Luftwaffe hurled its might against Britain. Bf 109 pilots fought mission after mission, often flying 4 or 5 sorties in a single day. Unlike the Royal Air Force, which rotated its pilots for rest, German aviators were kept in the fight until they collapsed or were killed. Fatigue became their silent enemy. A sickness spread through the squadrons, Kanalkrankheit or channel sickness. Stomach cramps, nausea, trembling hands, even hallucinations haunted exhausted men. They returned from battle shaking, unable to eat, unable to sleep, yet ordered back into the air. Commanders expected machines from their pilots, forgetting they were flesh and blood. This relentless pace eroded skill and morale. Accidents multiplied, mistakes in combat grew fatal. Some pilots began to fear takeoff more than the enemy. The RAF could rest, regroup and recover. The Luftwaffe could not. For many, the Bf 109 was not only a test of flying ability, but of human endurance, a test that claimed lives as surely as enemy bullets. In the early years of the war, German pilots trained for hundreds of hours. They mastered aerobatics, weapons, and emergency procedures before ever seeing combat. But by 1943, the Luftwaffe was bleeding men faster than they could be replaced. Fuel shortages crippled flight schools. Training hours shrank from hundreds to barely 20. Some cadets had never fired their cannons in practice before their first battle. Others had never flown in formation. These boys, many still teenagers, were hurled into the sky against Allied veterans with years of experience. Their odds of survival were slim. Crashes during training became routine, and accidents on first missions were tragically common. In 1944, entire squadrons were wiped out within weeks of formation. The proud Luftwaffe, once filled with aces, had become a graveyard of novices. The Bf 109, a machine that demanded precision and confidence, offered no mercy to the inexperienced. It punished hesitation with death. And so, more young recruits died in accidents and training mishaps than ever lived to challenge the enemy. In the Luftwaffe's desperation, the skies of Germany became littered with the wrecks of their own children. Even for seasoned pilots, the Bf 109 was unforgiving. Its cockpit was cramped with poor visibility to the rear, a weakness enemy pilots exploited. As the war dragged on, heavier engines and weapons were crammed into its airframe, increasing speed but straining the design. At high velocity, the controls stiffened, sometimes locking up in dives. Recoveries often came too late, ending in fatal crashes. Its landing gear remained fragile, still collapsing under stress or uneven ground. By 1943, the Allies were fielding superior aircraft, Spitfire Mk9s, P-47 Thunderbolts, and the long-range P-51 Mustang. The 109 could still fight, but it was no longer dominant. German pilots faced overwhelming bomber streams, escorted by hundreds of fighters. The skies turned into killing grounds, where every mission was a suicide gamble. Even aces found themselves cornered, outnumbered 5-1. For rookies, survival was measured in days. The Bf 109 had evolved into a machine that demanded perfection. Yet Germany was feeding it the exhausted, the untrained, and the hopelessly outnumbered. Mechanical brilliance could no longer save them. The machine that had once ruled the sky had become a relic, dragging its pilots down with it. In the war's final years, Germany's desperation turned tragic. With fuel gone and veterans dead, Hitler ordered even schoolboys to the skies. Hitler youth cadets, some just 15 or 16, were placed in cockpits with only days of instruction. They were told to sacrifice themselves if necessary. Many barely understood their instruments, let alone combat tactics. Entire formations disintegrated on first contact with Allied bombers. Some never even reached the enemy, crashing on takeoff or losing control mid-air. By 1945, the Luftwaffe was a shadow of itself. Its proud Bf 109 squadrons were reduced to wrecks scattered on airfields, its pilots exhausted children or broken veterans. The Allies dominated the air, their bombers laying waste to German cities, while P-51s and Spitfires swept the skies clean of opposition. For the Luftwaffe, the Bf 109 was no longer a weapon of hope. It was a sentence of death. Young men climbed into its cockpits, knowing the odds were impossible. For many, their first flight was their last. The fighter that had once brought glory now symbolized only despair, a final chapter written in smoke and ruin. More than 30,000 Bf 109s were built, making it the most produced fighter of the Second World War. It brought fame to aces like Erich Hartmann and Adolf Galland, who scored hundreds of victories. Yet for every celebrated ace, there were hundreds of forgotten men who never came home. Some died in training crashes, others in exhaustion, unable to endure endless missions. Many were boys, rushed to the front with no chance to survive, and countless more fell not in dogfights, but in accidents caused by the very design of their aircraft. The Bf 109 remains one of history's icons, its silhouette instantly recognizable. But behind its legend lies tragedy. It was a machine that demanded everything from its pilots and gave no forgiveness in return. For thousands of Luftwaffe airmen, their greatest enemy was not the Allied guns or flak, but the aircraft they trusted with their lives. The Messerschmitt Bf 109 story is not just one of power, speed, and fire. It is a story of sacrifice, despair, and young men caught in a machine that too often became their tomb. Between 20,000 and 25,000 pilots lost their lives flying the Bf 109. Half died under enemy fire, while many others perished in training accidents or from mechanical failures, and some fell victim to exhaustion and stress. Each one was a young life cut short, dreams and hopes ended before their time.